In this week's episode of Whiteboard Weather, we are talking about an Arctic invasion that's setting temperatures to maybe record levels. But before that, we have to roll the intro. All right, we got a whiteboard, and of course we have some weather, so let's get into it. Before we do anything, I have to update the snow ruler. If you're unfamiliar, we are representing the amount of snow we get here in Scranton, and specifically our backyard, with this ruler that goes all the way up to 32 inches. Now, if you know what we got this past week, yeah, it's about to get kind of interesting. So we added 9.7 inches, so now we are at 33.3 inches. So now we've officially run out of space. Now there's two options that we can do here. We can either extend upwards or we could do something on this side. Those are the two options I have. Let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube what you think we should do with all that. But for now we got to talk about the Arctic invasion. Kind of alien-like weather. We're kind of used to this in Pennsylvania. Florida, they're getting some temperatures that you don't usually expect. We expect it for this time of year. So I want to put into perspective what we're seeing and whether we're going to get beamed up temperatures here. I thought it'd be kind of cool. Anyway, so let's talk about how unusual the temperatures are. So we've now had, as of Thursday when I'm recording this, it was the 6th straight day below 20 degrees. 6th straight day, right? Now, is that a record? How often do we see it? Well, that is the 4th longest stretch of below 20 degree temperatures we've ever seen in the Scranton area. The 4th longest. The longest stretch is actually 10 days. So that means if we see 4 more days in the teens in a row, we tie a record. But I'm only expecting that to last until Sunday, which would make it 9 days. So we are going to see the 3rd longest streak of 10 days because that technically it happened twice. So it would be the 3rd. Anyway, we're getting to the minutia. Okay, so that's one streak we're talking about. Now, since we've seen highs in the teens, we've obviously set records, right? Well, no records were set with high, low temperatures, nothing. No records were set at all. But this time of year, it's hard to break records when you're talking about the deepest, the coldest time of year. You have to really get into the negatives in order to do that. Now, speaking of the negatives, let's talk about how negative temperatures have been over the last couple of days. So on Thursday morning rather, it was -1. Now, when you're watching this, hopefully we got to negative, but our forecast on Friday is -2. Okay, even colder. That would make it the coldest temperature of the year so far once again. And Saturday, we're forecasting -4 degrees. So 3 straight days in the negatives. Is that a record? Well, no, it is not a record. The record is actually, I believe it's 6 straight days of below 0 temperatures, so that's not setting a record. But this 3-day stretch has only happened 23 times ever in Scranton history, if it does happen this time. So it'll be the 23rd time it's ever happened where we see 3 consecutive days below 0. This is just for Scranton. We have those elevated areas like Mount Pocono, just everywhere, pretty much in elevations, Hazleton, you name the community. In Wayne County, a lot of communities that have probably seen 5, 6, 7 days in a row many times, but for the Scranton area, lower elevation, it's harder to see that. So we are looking at streaks. The streaks of cold weather is really the topic here. We've really had no breaks over the last week, and of course we had that big snowfall, so none of the snow really is going to melt. The alien is saying, "Get me out of here." I don't know, I thought that'd be funny to say. So we are under a pretty deep freeze here in January. And if you're wondering, this has been the coldest January since last January was actually colder than this January. Can you believe that? By about 2 degrees so far. I think the numbers, it's going to end up being like 1.5 degrees. But last January was colder than this January. So don't trust your eyes. Don't trust your eyes. That January thaw really helped us out. But let's now flip the board and let's talk about Florida. Why is that? Well, I want to talk about Florida because they're having an outdoor hockey game in Florida, and you may be thinking, okay, how are they gonna do this? So they have a couple of methods. The first method that they're doing is they're building a 200 by 100 foot dome basically to build the ice. So here's a rink here. They're building the rink underneath the encasing. They're keeping the temperature cold in order to build up that ice. The second thing that they're doing is making sure the ice is twice as thick as it usually is. So just in case they get some meltage, it's doable. The third thing that they're doing is what a lot of rinks do, especially in warmer climates, is underneath the ice, they're pumping super cooled water underneath it to keep the ice at a cold enough temperature. So underneath the ice surface, you got these tubes that are going to be kind of winding up and down, and that basically pump the cold air through there so the ice temperature is cold, so you could more efficiently cool the ice, and so the skaters aren't going around in slush. But what if I told you this may not be necessary in Florida? The game is being played in Tampa, Florida, so in Central Florida, and the average high temperature, I'm going to do this in red now, the average temperature in Tampa this time of year, high is 72. Imagine an average high is 72 in the coldest time of year. Anyway, an average low is 54, right? If we're wondering, okay, it could certainly be warmer than 72, right? If that's the average, well, the record is 85, and the record coldest is 27. So they can be in the 20s this time of year. The record for the date that they're playing this hockey game is 27. And you may be wondering, okay, so is it going to be hot or cold? Well, the cold air that we're getting, that's actually sinking all the way down to Tampa. So we're talking about, in Tampa, Florida, game day temperature of around 39 degrees for the high, and then in the morning they're going to be in the lower 30s, like 31 degrees. So we're talking about daytime temperatures in the 30s for an outdoor hockey game in Tampa, which when they scheduled this game years ago, they were like, oh no, we're going to schedule in the coldest time of year, but it can also be in the 80s. But it just so happens it's going to be pretty ideal conditions. Now, the one problem that they'll have to deal with is the fans that are going to have to bundle up. It's a Tampa Bay Lightning that will be playing, and Tampa Bay fans, I'm not sure if they want to brave the cold. They're playing against Boston, so maybe Boston fans are going to be more prominent at the game, and maybe they have to donate some of their clothes to the Tampa fans. So 39, 31, that's going to be roughly what's going on. But there's something also that may happen. So we have this coastal low that's going to be forming. You probably heard about it, and that's going to dump a lot of snow for us here in the north. Well, that's going to ride along the Atlantic coast, but behind it is wrapping around cold air. You have cold air wrapping around this low pressure, and that is going to combine with some Gulf moisture, and maybe, just maybe, right now they're thinking about a 20 to 30% chance that they're going to see some lake effect or Gulf effect, snow showers in Tampa, and all that's happening on February 1st, 2026. Now, Tampa hasn't seen snow since 1977. So, in the last 50 years, no snow in Tampa. Not only is it cold, but we could potentially see flurries in Tampa on the day that they're playing an outdoor hockey game. I honestly think it's because they scheduled the game that they're going to get it. The problem is with lake effect, snow bands in salt water, you have two problems. One is that salt water is a little bit more dense, so it's physically harder to lift. So the first problem you have is the density. So generally, salt water is harder to lift. The Great Lakes are freshwater, so it's more easier to lift. And the second is because of the density, you have something called the specific heat. So the specific heat, I need to make sure I spell specific heat right. I gotta concentrate for a second. Specific, because I've spelled many words wrong. The specific heat of salt water is a little bit lower. Basically what that is the energy to warm or cool something down. So what that does is make the bands a little less strong, a little less convective. So salt water, it's a little harder to get these lake effect bands, but it's certainly going to be possible. Lake effect, Gulf effect, snow showers for a outdoor hockey game in Tampa on the exact day that's going to happen. Yeah, that's enough blabbering. Hopefully you learned something today. I don't know. I was trying to do a little something different here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of Whiteboard Weather. My name is Anthony Bordenaro here in our Storm Tracker 16 Weather Center. Have a good weekend, everybody. Remember, stay warm.